Good afternoon, actually, everyone. Sarah O'Bodway, Andy Serling, welcome to Talking Horses. I feel like you haven't been here in a while. You were off last week, and it's been like 2 weeks since I've seen you.
Did you
on the
miss
show.
me?
Yeah, we all missed you.
Oh, so sweet.
Yeah, I noticed the afternoon show basically fell apart without your presence.
Oh, I knew that would happen.
I'm sure you did.
It's okay. I was still texting some people from home
I'm
about
sure
things
you
I was
were.
watching on TV at home. I was like, oh, the Lane Luzzy feature turned out really nice. Good job, guys.
You didn't make any text to tell them that they did things wrong and that they wouldn't have happened if you were there?
I don't want to do that anymore. I've done that in the past. It
Anymore.
requires too much of a keen eye to really be paying close attention to the show at home. And if I'm not being paid for it, I don't need to tell everyone what they're doing
The
wrong.
problem with being a zealot, as I can speak from my own experience, and you are one as well, is that it's very hard to just, when you're on vacation, to just walk away.
You can't take a day off.
Yeah,
I had three screens going with
painful.
3 different tracks.
Well, you also live in a household where racing is on 24/7.
This is true.
Anyhow, we are hoping the rain holds off. It feels like there's going to be a little bit of showers. It may not get bad until very late in the day, so we're going to keep our fingers crossed for that. But anyhow, we're glad to be here on a Saturday, a 9-race card to talk about. And there is no show on Fox today, no America's Day at the Races. Just some conflicts, so no show today. But we will be doing Prattles. Greg Wolf will be handling the Prattles in the first half of the card. I will be on the second half, and I think Maggie will be on throughout the day as well. And looking forward to this card. Looking forward to looking at some races at Tampa. They have a fun card down there as well. So plenty of action, which you can play. That was like a good segue by me. It's one of
It's
my
really
better
well done.
Really was.
I'm really
Then I
proud.
ruined it by bragging about it. You can play them all at Naira Bets. Use the promo code bonus200.
Excellent transition.
We will match the $200 of your initial deposit. We also have track stats. That's over at Naira Bets. Check those out as well. If you are, or you're joining, or you're a member, check them out over at Naira Bets. Also, Eddie, the middle pick 4. This is the highlight of my day. Races 2, 3, and 6, I believe, on our 9-race card. About 8 race cards, so we haven't had them. That's why I've been going through withdrawal, middle pick 4 withdrawal. We also have a bankroll builder. A bet $50 to win the Tampa Bay Derby if you win. Oh no, win, lose, or draw. You get $20 back for the Derby. So it's a $50 bet for $30 for $30 effectively. I do not agree with quite a few morning lines I saw at Tampa. I don't know about you. I can't imagine Domestic Product isn't going to be favored in that race.
Especially after his last race, I mean.
Well, he's not the favorite in the morning line. He's going to be favored over the Sam Davis winner, and he's probably going to be even odds on or even money.
I think so.
He's also been training very well coming into the race. I also feel that, and I know market segmentation scratched, but Elusive Princess is the 9-2, now third choice on the line. And how is she not favored in there?
Right, especially after what she did this summer at Saratoga, all the money she took then. I
She
mean,
run it badly in Keeneland
Right.
in the QE2. It's a pretty good horse. I think, is that it, Eddie? Is that all we got for us? Oh wait, yeah, that's right. You found that one, didn't you? Got a cross country with Oaklawn. No Tampa Bay Derby, but 3 from Oaklawn and 2 from Aqueduct, including the Azeri. I always mispronounce that, and Greg gets mad at me.
what do you usually say?
Azari. I don't know why. I think it's like I'm thinking a Razi. So I've got a
Yeah.
Razi in my
Yeah.
head,
Okay.
and so I say Azari, but it's Azari.
Azari.
Yeah, you were not around for her, and one of the amazing things with
I was
her.
around, just not into racing.
Right, when she got resurrected by Wayne Lucas.
Yeah.
And she turned the tables on Sightseek had beaten her in the Phipps. I think beat her pretty easily. Turned the tables on her, and I want to say probably the Go for Juan. We were still running back then, and then she ran an amazing race, went second, and the Personal Ensign was still 1.25 miles. When she got involved in a crazy duel, I think it was a Carlos Martin horse, actually. Got in a crazy duel with that horse, went like 45-4 or something, maybe 46 to the half, and she got run down by the My Flag filly for Shug. That had won the, I think the Breeders' Cup is a 2-year-old now. I don't know why I'm drawing a blank, but she should have won. But she had an amazing career because she was so
did.
tremendous early in her career. Kind of had some setbacks, but then she did get her act there. She actually ran. I don't know if she ran in the Breeders' Cup Classic
She
against Ghost Zapper, and that has to be the best, strongest, deepest Breeders' Cup Classic field, I think. Anyhow, race number 1. So race number 1, we've got 3 first-time starters and 2 that ran. None of the ones that ran did a lot of running in their races. I'm going to go to both of them 1-2. You've taken one of them on top and put the other one distant fourth.
Yeah, I mean, I feel as though the horses that are debuting here, there isn't a ton to recommend in terms of pedigree or flashy sales price or someone that really you can totally sink your teeth into in terms of all of the attributes coming in that indicates that they would be live doing this, sprinting on dirt for the first time. So I went to a horse that took significant money first time out, and I feel as though that meant something at that time because there was a horse in that race for Todd Pletcher and Irad Ortiz Jr. that was basically the same price in there. And while Looks First did not run very well in that race and Wine on Tap did win, and it hasn't really been a productive race overall going forwards, that indicates to me that somebody thought highly of this horse at that time.
And they were wrong.
And they were wrong, yes. But then I don't want to hold the turf route against her either because she was running behind Hard to Justify, who then won the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies. So I don't know if she has any ability at all, but I think that that was at least tipping her hand in the morning, or somebody thought something of her.
I definitely see and do not argue with what you're saying. My problem is they liked her so much first time, and then he went to a route on the turf a month later. And Dave Dunk's a pretty sharp guy. And you would think if something sort of went wrong in that first race, and listen, I've got her second, so it's not as though I'm in any way suggesting I don't think she's a major player here for exactly the reasons that you suggested. I kind of thought, wouldn't Dave have gone back to a dirt sprint in Saratoga if he thought something went wrong or something? Now, I've never asked Dave Dunk, I don't know, but you're right. For that horse to be exactly the same price, from both $1.05 to 1, than the Todd Pletcher horse who won the race, who's never done, she hasn't done anything.
She ran second at Monmouth
in the sorority.
Yep.
The sorority used to be a great race. Ruffian won it.
Oh.
In fact, when she won it, I think it was the closest finish of her career. Hot and Nasty was second to her. Yeah. Anyhow, Laughing Bridge ran in the Spinaway.
Maybe they wanted distance. That's really the only thing I can
don't
possibly
know,
think of.
but it's 6 furlongs today, so
Right.
I don't really
not.
know. My feeling on the 4 is this. Okay, this horse did not run particularly well. Now, broke a little bit slowly, did add a mile steady a couple of times in the backstretch, was kind of jammed in on the rail. I'm not defending the performance because it wasn't particularly good, but there were a couple of mild excuses in there. And I sort of said to myself, because these are the same connections out of the horse in Florida, why would you even send this horse to New York based on that race? Because based on that race, she should probably be running, maybe, I mean, I don't know if she has some value, but she has $135,000 a 2-year-old sale. You would almost, why would you ship her to New York after she ran so badly? And she's coming to Rick Dutrow first time, and I thought, maybe she's a horse that just needed that race and did have a little trouble, and why bother coming all the way here based on that effort? Wouldn't you just leave her down at Tampa?
And possibly maybe even then look for a spot that's a little bit lesser competitive in terms of where she was running, maybe drop her in for a tag, because that was not the deepest field, but at the same time, it was a big field, and I feel like she did get a good education out of that
I agree.
race.
I agree.
She did break from the inside. There were multiple points of steadying and being in tight in between horses and towards the rail, and I think that while she didn't really do that much running and was sort of one-paced in the stretch, I can see that being more of a learning experience for her coming in here, and she has been working very well since joining his barn.
So I think she's interesting coming to Rick. But I mean, the thing about the first is, I know you're right about the first, is there's really nothing to say about the pedigree, but it's still Todd Pletcher, Chad Brown, and Rick Dutrow. So it is 3 very dangerous trainers. So the pedigree, you have to be very careful about just assuming they're not good because they don't have a lot of pedigree. Because there's plenty of horses that are good that don't have a ton of pedigree, and all of these guys are very capable of winning with a firster. So it's not like it's a field where you've got sort of some nondescript trainers with not too much. And
Sure.
I don't mean that as an insult to anybody, but I'm sure it'll be taken as such. But I'm just saying there's 3 guys. I mean, Chad and Todd are habitually 2 nominees for the Clips Award, and Rick's pretty good too.
And all 3 of them are really working very well on the dirt as well, especially out of the gate. So you have to think somebody likely has some speed.
We'll see what happens. Race number 2. Race number 2 was changed, in my opinion, because I never agreed with the time, form, pace projector. I assumed that Mr. Phil would be in front in this race, and I thought he would heat the pace up. And because he scratched the horse that you've put on top, Swift Tap, and we'll show, I think, his last race, he's much more dangerous because he's a potential lone speed.
And I feel as though when he was cutting back a little bit in distance last time and really sort of stepped it up in terms of his buyer speed figure, going from that 59 to the 69 when finishing 3rd, he was a little bit sharper as well. And that was a day where I don't think he really wanted to be right on the rail. And while he wasn't, I think that being more towards the outside, further outside, was really more beneficial for a lot of these horses. And we saw that play out in this race, right? With the first place finisher going the widest of all, second place a little bit more so, and then him not really being on the rail, but not being far off of it either. So
outside flowy day, I agree.
I think that there may have been some excuses for him coming back off that layoff. Maybe he needed the race. He was running into some decent horses in that race where he ended up finishing second to Lord Gatling in a race where it wasn't that enthusiastic of a performance, but he was still a horse that was forwardly placed and pressed a little bit. And now getting back out to the mile distance, potentially as a horse that seeks to control, makes him dangerous.
But isn't Castillo going to be aggressive with Pit Boss? I'm not saying that he's not fast than Pit Boss, but isn't Castillo
He
supposed
should
to
be.
be? And it'll be interesting to see the track because I do think now, obviously Thursday was extremely speed favoring. I think, yeah, Greg had brought this up to me around the fifth or sixth race. He said to me that he think it's really kind of more similar to yesterday, even though the track's dried out. And he was right as time went on. It wasn't like you absolutely had to have the lead the same way you seemingly did, though a lot of logical results and stuff throughout both days. It did seem like speed was an advantage. Now, whether or not that's the case today, I don't know. Now, I liked Blue Grotto. I would have changed. I didn't need to switch to the same horse that you picked, to be honest here. I don't disagree with anything you said about him, and I don't want to put Pit Boss on top because I just don't trust him for David Jacobson dropping down. He may win this race. He is the horse to beat. I see why he's favored, but I don't trust this horse. But he is running faster races than these other horses.
He is, and he got really good for the Wayne Potts barn because he was a horse that he hadn't won in quite some time, right? But then he started running races that really put him in the mix.
Well, he ran that crazy race for Wayne Potts. It's kind of indefensible, to be honest with you, the race he got claimed in. And he hasn't run back to it.
He has yet to hit the board for Jacobson, so I don't know. The last win was his first since May of 2023. I just don't want to take him at a super short price, but to dismiss him completely would be a mistake.
No, because at the end of the day, he might just be better than these horses because it's not clear. I agree with what you said about Swift Half, and I have no argument with it, but it may be that he's just not really that good.
Sure.
And with Blue Grotto, we're all sort of hoping he gets back to that put-over race on December 1st.
The most they knew of they knew.
That was, that was the race December 1st. I was in Jamaica, and I was getting texts from random people saying, and I was thinking, thank God, and I think I even tweeted, thank God I'm not there, that I don't have to discuss the ridiculous, and it wasn't just the form reversal, it was the money the horse took.
Yes.
And, they even thought, they thought they were going to put one over because they put Heeman Harkey on it, and maybe he wouldn't take as much money because Heeman was riding, though I think Heeman rides fine, but he's less high profile. Maybe if they didn't tell everybody they liked the horse, they would have got a bigger price. And he didn't run that badly last time, and his form has fallen apart, but he is dropping a lot here. But I feel with the scratch of Mr. Phil, it takes a speed element out of the race that's going to hurt his cause.
Right, and I will say, even though that was sort of the ultimate they knew performance, in terms of the wagering in that race, it is a race where we've seen a lot of horses come out of there and run pretty well that did finish behind him. Grandpa's Kid, Prince of Joy, MB's Munning, Cheeky Tico even. That's a race that going forward, those horses have improved a little bit or run back to some of their better forms. So he's just been facing some tougher horses.
Oh, he's facing horses that are in a different galaxy than the ones he's facing today. I completely agree. And I basically took him on the drop down, and I felt with Mr. Phil in there, the pace would be honest enough to help him get it done. It's a little bit different right now. Race number 3, we'll take a look at Friday I'm in Love, a horse that Sarah and I both on top, and it's a horse that I hate picking. I loved this horse last time. I needed him for a score in the picks, and I still made some money, but I would have done much better if he won. It was twice as big. The pick whatever I had, pick 5, pick 4, pick 3, I don't know what it was.
He was so game. I felt so bad for him. He put away the other horse that was forwardly placed in this race, a huge long shot, and I think Dolly's Bank, and still really tried to battle back with a horse that was dropping in class for the first time with Want a Winner. Almost came back on him, but then didn't have enough to really seal the deal. This was
I thought when he
big
came
effort.
back, he was going to win.
This was a big effort,
Yeah.
and a tough beat if you like this
To
horse.
a heavy favorite.
Exactly,
And the
because he
problem
fought
is,
the whole way.
Right, he ran super. It's funny that horse you mentioned, the long shot that ran with him, he's entered Thursday, and it reminded me that he cost him the race for no reason. I agree. The problem is he's going to be, he was 4-1 that day. He's going to be a fraction. He's going to be 6-5 today, I would imagine. I don't know if we have a graphics issue. My picks here are 7, 6, 5, 8. The problem I have is I don't see anybody that's supposed to beat him here, and I think he's supposed to be the controlling speed again. I'm not going to pick against him just because I need him last time at a shorter price, because I have nobody else that I think I can beat him with.
Right, and it's not like he knows that he's now your personal enemy in any way. Like, it's not like he is to blame for an effort like that, because he ran his race. He ran very well. He just got run down by a horse that was maybe a little bit better than he was and got a better trip on that day. So I don't have any problems with him either. I think that he is so much so the horse to beat in here. And even if you think that a horse like Waffler is going to be aggressive and be forwardly placed in this spot, he's had so many opportunities and he hasn't been able to seal them out, even though his last couple of races have been a little bit better.
But he tried him last time and he couldn't quite keep
He was
up
no
with him, and
match.
he got buried. I went 7-6-5-8. What did you do
I went
here?
7-4-5-6. I kind of have a little bit of a thing for Charming Jim, because he's a horse that maybe perhaps has a little bit more upside in where he can be placed in a race early. I don't think he needs to be as far back as he was on the dirt as he was last time, running behind Waffler and October Bliss. And he was really the only horse making up significant ground in that race. He's shown that on the turf he can sit a little bit closer. And I think that if he doesn't give himself quite as much to do as he did last time, he could be a little bit more competitive at a better price.
Okay, I liked Ring Me as my second horse in here. Horse I thought could improve off that race there. Terranova's Darn is doing very, very well. I don't think he ran as well as the horse on the rail, his name I'm not going to try to pronounce. But I feel like he may have some upside and can run better, as he made that sort of last move in the race. So I'm going to take him as my second horse, but both of us are not trying to beat the 7. Any graphic problems? All right.
That's fine.
Should we break after 4 and give you a little minute to fix it? We'll
Okay.
break after race number 4. We'll do this race, though. I went 4-6-3-2 in here. What did you do?
We agree. I went 4-5-6-3 because Play just seems like a horse that potentially has some upside and some excuses over the last couple of starts. I mean,
Monster excuses.
breaking slowly and then getting checked in the first race. Then they had the blinkers in the second race, and this horse was forwardly placed on a day where it seemed as though being wide was more beneficial. I just feel as though he was stuck on the rail 2 times in a row, and that might not be to his benefit where he really wants to be. I liked the improvement that he showed in terms of where he was placed early on in the race in his second start. And I also feel like now just getting off the rail a little bit and possibly facing maybe a bit of an easier field, it could help him.
I don't think it's an easier field. I'm not
No?
sure about that. I don't know. I mean, obviously, Authorized ran well. I think he was compromised by being on a dead rail last time and being forced because he had the rail and he kind of had to go. And the big trip in the first race that you mentioned, and there's our stuff. Thanks. We'll break after 5 then, Eddie? Okay, we'll sit there. You'll be stuck with us through 5 before we take a break. The one thing I'll say, though, is Excellent Man shouldn't be ignored. In some ways, I probably could have gone 6-4 in here, because Excellent Man will be a bigger price because he was smack dab on a dead rail. And that just February 9th dead rail for the second half of the card. It was gold for the first. Second half of the card is becoming extremely productive. And Excellent Man was right on the rail last time out. And he actually ran pretty well 2 races back. I don't totally trust him, and I like you. I think Play has some upside. But I'm firm. And the other thing is, like, horses that are going to take money in here. Magic Express, okay. You have Magic Express 4th. I have him 3rd. We'll show his race at Parks. He did run well in there.
He did.
I'm just not really convinced. Wasn't the winner of that race like a
He
17th start or
it was
something?
0 for 17. This was a fig that was such an anomaly for Respirator. And I
Yep.
remember I was looking at this race this day because there were so many interesting pedigrees in this sort of random race to show up on middle of the week at Parks. And he is one of those horses that had some pedigree, but a lot of horses in this race just did not show up at all. And your 3rd place finisher in this race is Confirmed Star, who was facing males in here and had run behind, Risk Free in the past. So I feel as though that was a race where the winner ran a really good number that day that he had not approached before.
Just to give you an example, he ran a 58, then he ran an 84 in here, and then he ran a 69. And even Confirmed Star, the 3rd place finisher, had run 61, 63, and 67. So even with the
It was
gaps,
less of an outlier,
it was
but still,
but it
it
was
was
still a
better.
little high, and I'm skeptical of this horse as well. And as far as Majestic Michael, who will show his first race and he finished 2nd, and he obviously has talent. I am not denying it. But I just don't really want him off the long layoff. The barn has not started a horse here this winter. I think Tony's a great trainer, but they haven't started horses. I just don't trust this horse coming off the long layoff.
And that's fair. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel as though this was the horse that they were sitting on a milestone victory, either 1,000, 2,000, whatever it might have been, for the barn.
For Tony?
Yes, it was a milestone victory, and they were really excited about this horse in particular, and they felt as though this was going to be the one to secure that record.
Well, they did catch that crazy performance by Mystical Curl in second time out, and I'm not going to say he can't win because he can. I just didn't want him off the layoff. And the other thing is, I want the 4 and 6 in this race. So I just want those 2 horses, and they're the ones I'm going to live and die with.
Yeah, that's fine.
Race number 5, we'll take a break after that. And race number 5 is kind of sort of the biggest question of the day, and that
Yes.
question being, will this horse, and we'll take a look at Mandatory, will he come back and run anywhere close to that race? Now, I've always liked Mandatory, and I've always thought he had some ability. But having said that, I don't know what to do with this race. Now, listen, I would say Magianera certainly came back and flattered the performance. I'm assuming, I don't remember what Figgy got. Maybe it was down a few points from that, or I'm not sure. Maybe it was close.
But not so significantly
Right, it
down
was-
that you think that this is such a one-off as it sort of looked at
It was
this
a crazy
time.
performance. It was a crazy fast race. He won by 100 lengths. If he runs, if he backs up 10 points, he's
He still
going to win
wins.
this race. I don't want to take him on top, but it would be foolish to suggest that he's not an hour and a half the horse. to
Right,
beat.
because it's not as though he'd never run good races in the past, and while he might not have been the winningest type before, and that was sort of a brutal takedown when he was disqualified and placed second in that race back, around this time last year in April, we had never seen him run quite that fast before.
But he has run high 80s, as you
He
said, in
has.
those 2 races, and even if he regresses 15 points, I'm not sure he's going to win. Or I'm not sure he's not going to win this race. What is your case for Blue Bay Special, who I do not like at all?
I mean, I feel as though we've seen this barn really have that high intensity, high heat meet earlier on a couple months ago, but they kind of cooled off, and now it's sort of at a little bit of a simmer. It's still a barn that is really productive and able to move horses up since they've claimed them, and I feel as though when he got that win, yes, he got a nice setup that day against lesser company, but when he came back in a race that was at a tougher level, that was a legitimate slow start for him. He was off very slowly. His head was turned. He was far back early on in that race, and he still made up some good ground to end up finishing third in there. And I felt as though there might be a couple of horses in this race that do their best running forward, and he might get a similar setup in here. He might not be good enough, but I think that things could play out for him from a tactical standpoint, and I did feel as though he had an excuse last time.
Yeah, but he also was on a racetrack where the paces were falling apart and there was a big outside flow. So you're right about his beginning part, but I thought he was flattered later in the race. I also think he's meeting a significantly tougher field than he met last time. And I just don't trust this horse coming back in 8 days after coming back in 12 days in his prior start or 13 days in his prior start. And I just wonder when the magic's going to wear off, because I have no idea where the heck this performance improvement came from for Randy Persaud, because he is a completely and totally different horse in his
Over his
barn.
last 2 starts,
And he's
right.
going to run again a week later. I get it. You're not wrong. I just want to see it. And there is supposed to be some pace. I don't want him in here.
That's fair.
I want to give Noda another chance in this race. I actually felt like Noda ran very well last time, all things considered. And I like the fact that he's getting a little bit less distance. I mean, this was a reasonable, stumble in there. It wasn't terrible because it didn't really cost him, because he ends up breaking sort of forward, but it didn't hurt him in that respect. But this race absolutely and completely fell apart in the late stages. It was just a total collapse, and he was the one pressing the base, trying to go a mile, forcing the pace the whole way, and I thought he ran extremely well in there after having run well before on a wet track, which there's going to be probably some moisture by the time we get
By
to the
this
fifth
time.
race, unfortunately. And I thought his last race a lot better than it looks. I don't think Mandatory is going to lose this race, but if he loses, I believe this horse is going to beat him. And I know there's pace in here, but he draws well outside of those horses, so I'm hoping that can mitigate a little bit.
He does. He's in great form right now, and I think his last race was a solid effort. As you mentioned, he was up close. The pace came apart.
good.
He had that bobble forward that you mentioned, where it didn't really cost him momentum, but it's still never how you want to start a race. And the top two finishers were horses that were coming from off the pace in there. And I think we were also questioning, did he really want to go that far? And his case was enhanced a little bit by another speed in that race, Scratching, but he still did all of the dirty work in there.
And I think he's one of the few horses that has a legit chance to beat the favorite if he runs well in here. I know Night Effect's been in good form, and he actually ran pretty well at 1 1/8. I think he will appreciate the cutback in distance. I'm just skeptical that he's quite good enough to win this race.
Right, and I think that he's run better than I've expected over his last couple
Yeah,
of
he's run well.
starts, but at the same time, I kind of wonder if the 7 furlongs really is going to suit him in terms of being a little bit sharper than what he's been used to over his last couple races. With
I
other
like
speed.
the 7 furlongs for him.
You do?
I just don't know if he's quite good enough yet. I think 7 furlongs fits him like a glove. We'll see what happens. We'll be back with the late pick 4 after a quick break.
For almost 150 years, the Saratoga name has been synonymous with the finest quality, sustainably sourced spring water available anywhere. Saratoga carries on the rich tradition of its forefathers by crafting each stunning blue glass bottle with the same attention to detail and care that has been its hallmark for generations. Visit SaratogaSpringwater.com today or ask for us by name at your local market or restaurant. Saratoga Spring Water. Make every day exquisite.
Welcome back to Talking Horses. Sarah Albadwi and Andy Serling. Race number 6 on today's card. I changed my pick in this race with the scratch because I worry that this scratch, first of all, I misinterpreted the race right away. I didn't realize, and I was obviously wrong, that David would make Lock and Key the favorite. And I don't really want him as the favorite in here. And I also worry with the scratch of Warolo, it's going to take out another pace presence. And potentially, and I think Messy Magician is fast, and maybe he'll be fast enough to heat the pace up. And you have to wonder a little bit if Bourbon's Hope will be aggressive like he was last time. And listen, Fortune's Nephew, who we'll get to in a minute. In fact, can we flip these, Eddie, and show Fortune's Nephew's last race? P Money finished 4th in there.
He'll be forward.
He's got to be forward, so maybe there will be enough speed, but I worry that the absence of the 6 could create less of a pace dynamic in his favor.
Well, I think that it's something that you have to consider with one of the horses that we both thought would be forward coming out of this race, and I felt as though there was still enough in terms of the speed that was left in with horses that wanted that forward position, and here are horses that had been more successful when they're on the lead to be able to still set it up for Lock and Key. And I also kind of wonder, and this is probably one of the few, and it might be the last times I question David, but Fortune's Nephew has been the favorite in most of his starts.
But there's going to be pace in this race, the perception. With Messy's Magician, anybody reasonable is going to assume that he's not going to be able to control in here. And I think that's a concern for him. I understand what you're saying. I'm going to trust with David. I think we all saw the same thing with Lock and Key, and I think David's feeling is we're all seeing it, and whether we're right or wrong, a lot of people are going to see it. And I have no argument. He is the horse to beat in this race, so probably is the right favorite. And also, with Fortune's Nephew, aren't we just getting a little sick of him, frankly?
Yes, because he's running well, but he's not winning at short prices over his last couple of starts.
And I feel like this is a more competitive race that he's in.
I agree.
I mean, and now, if the race falls apart, Kentucky Joker can win. Now, while this track was very kind to inside runners, Kentucky Joker did spend almost the entire race on the rail before angling out the stretch. He got just perfect enough ride to beat Vaga Mardini at 5-1 at the wire and make me want to throw up.
Yeah, I remember.
And Vaga Mardini had no excuse. I mean,
he didn't.
He got everything you could want in there. It's just this horse got a tremendous ride, and I'm not exactly sure where this race came from. And that's the other problem.
Well,
what do you do?
Isn't he Lock and Key, but with one race like this instead of a couple?
Yeah, that's a fair analogy.
Isn't he the same horse? But
and one race where he had a very good trip.
Right, like where he's shown that he can sort of be a horse that's going to sit a similar trip. He's going to be one that's coming late in this race. He can run fast enough as he did in that last race, but he's only really done it once versus Lock and Key has been able to sort of show that more consistent form over a couple of starts. And I know that he was winning in Saratoga and quickly moving through conditions, but he's sort of held his form and run well since then as well.
I'm going to try Pascal Moon in this race. I know that he's a little slow, and he may turn out to be slow, but I feel like he's going to be forward enough. So if the pace isn't particularly hot, he's not going to be compromised. And I think his recent efforts are a little bit better than they look, to be honest with you. I think they're decent enough efforts. I know he lost to Messy Magician, but it's going to be a more favorable pace scenario for him today without Messy Magician qualifying, being able to control. And he's going to be a big price. And I kind of wanted to take a bigger price in this race rather than take Lock and Key at 5-2, especially with Warolo coming out of the race. So I took him at a bigger price. I don't think he's nearly as likely to win as Lock and Key, but I think his 3 times the price will more than compensate for that. That's my story, and I'm sticking with it.
All right, fair enough.
Race number 7. Race number 7, we lost a big player with Lucency coming out, and a horse that was going to contribute to the pace. And while Certified Lover Boy and Duke of Gloucester can be more forward, I do think it affects it. But as we look at the horse that you have on top, Mystical Curlin running second last time, Suerte running third, I don't think that Mystical Curlin is badly compromised, though maybe from these longer distance races, he may not have the speed that he once had. But if it rains, that's certainly in his favor.
And that's sort of what I was thinking about as we got later on in this card, because I do feel like that weather will be here by this time. And I don't expect that we're ever going to see his mystical performance of a 103 Beyer when he was able to win by like 19 and whatever lengths.
The guy on Twitter who told me that he should be running in the Whitney the next time he ran, he did not show up since
He
then.
didn't come
have
out
not seen
with
him.
umbrella and
I haven't
everything?
seen him come.
Maybe he'll come
no,
out
I'm saying he
today.
didn't speak after he lost. The problem with that is he came back on a sloppy sealed track in his next start and ran a 79 Beyer and lost to a Linda horse who's okay.
I'm saying we're not going to see that
No,
again.
but I'm saying I'm not sure who the Mystical. Do we know for a fact that Mystical Curlin loves a wet track, or was that just one of those weird freak out performances because he caught the same track the next time and he ran? I mean, legitimately, he ran like 10 lengths slower, maybe more, maybe 15 lengths slower,
Well,
and that's a concern.
Aren't we both of the mindset that no wet track plays exactly the same?
Well, I mean, but they were both at Belmont Park.
Yes.
So I'm not of the mindset that they were significantly different. He should have won that race.
He
And
should have.
but the argument for him may be that he's improved since then. He may just be a better horse all around.
And I think he's just shown a little bit more consistency over his last couple
been great.
of
No,
races
I
in
agree.
terms of his numbers, whereas that 103 really was a big jump up
Right.
that we had seen from him and it sort of came out of nowhere.
But I worry a little bit that people are going, not saying you, that people are going to see if it gets wet.
Oh, then
They're
suddenly
going to say he's going to be a shorter price than maybe the 4-1, and obviously I imagine Lucency was one of the choices by David
9-2.
here. So okay, so he's probably 7-2 or whatever, and he's
Sure.
I guess he's the second choice in the line. It's a competitive race. I just worry a little bit that he's going to become the hot horse of the race. He's also probably the worst to beat, even on a dry track, dry or wet. He's probably the worst to beat.
Yeah, I mean, based on his last race, that's kind of what I thought, because Suerte's a horse that I like quite a bit. He's very game, he's very talented, but he's just not winning, and I'm kind of tired of it.
Well, that's fair, but the thing about Suerte is he's going to be a better price today. So you're going to get compensated for that as opposed to his last races. And I think Suerte ran well in that race, mile 3/16, and I actually kind of like this cutback for him a little bit. Now, the question is, last time, is he a Mike Maker horse in the, because there have been a number of Mike Maker horses that have completely failed to show up. So has he lost his form? Because he had a little troubles last time, but he was
bad.
brutal in that race.
He was bad.
So you have to worry. And it's the only muddy sealed track race he has showing. And if the track
That's
comes
a
up wet,
concern.
you have to worry. But his price will be better. So I don't want to completely dismiss him, just as you haven't as well. You've got him second in here. I'm going to bet on Principe Duro in here. And if I'm wrong, I can live with myself. But
I'm glad.
my feeling with him is that he had the credentials to be a player in his last race, and he has credentials from his former form to be a player here. I know he's an ex-Todd horse, and maybe he's a finished product, but I don't think, and I know it's Adam Rice deputizing for Linda while she's on suspension, but Linda, I'm sure Linda's placing horses and knows where to run them, and she would have no problem dropping this horse. I mean, they only paid $80,000 for him. It's not like she paid some sort of fortune for this horse, you know? She'd have no problem dropping into a 50 and doesn't drop. And this horse was as dead on the board as any horse you could find the whole meet, because everybody thought this horse was a major contender last time and took absolutely no money and didn't do much running. And it's a race that gets a little bit better with Whittingham Park running as well as he
back.
did. Now, and Certified Lover Boy ran pretty well last time. I don't think he's impossible, so I just feel like I'm going to give him one more chance today.
Okay.
And if he's bad, so be it. But he's going to be a better price. And today, he's not dead when he's a better price. The weird horse in here is the horse that we both have fourth, right?
Yeah, what do you do with this
Vespucci.
horse?
Well, they scratched him last time. He's going to run today. And this horse is very good. He
Yes.
got left in his last race. And I'll tell you something else about this day. He spent a significant portion later in the race on the rail. And my friend who does Monmouth, whose opinion is very, very good, and I know he made an outside move, but he ends up getting pushed inside, will tell me it was one of the worst dead rails of the meet. This is a good horse, and that was an extremely good field. I mean, there were killers in there. Wasn't, I mean, I know Abaddon came back and won at
Duke of
Saratoga.
Gloucester was in there. Straight Arrow was
Straight
in
Arrow
there.
was in there. That's the
Yeah,
horse.
that's the horse you're thinking of.
Maybe he got my vote as the New York Red Horse of the Year, by the way. I
you
think
tell
he's
him?
terrific. I don't think he cares. This is a good horse. This is
Yes.
a tough field to come back in, though.
This is not the easy spot. That's exactly what I was thinking, because clearly this horse has some ability and some talent to be able to
He's
do
good.
what he did, going the 6 furlong distance at Monmouth after the trouble that he had at the start with the rail disadvantage, like you mentioned as well. This horse has ability. I just don't know how much to come back here because it's going to have to be significant if several of these horses show up with their best.
I mean, I don't think expected value is impossible in this race. I actually thought he
thought
ran
about it a
fairly
little
well
bit.
last time. I could use him. Listen, David likes Shipsational, David Aragona. I respect his opinion as much as anybody in the game, but I just don't see it. But that doesn't mean he'll be the first horse that he liked. I didn't like. And you've got Certified Lover Boy third, and
His last two
His last-
races have been good.
I agree with you. I agree.
I mean, his last two races have been really solid, and I know that they've been sort of improvements in what we had seen from him in the past, but not so much so that you don't think that he's just moving in the right direction. And he ran well behind Whittington Park, as we already mentioned. He came back and he ran a 99 barrier speed figure in his subsequent start, winning a stakes race. And I feel as though last time he was just so aggressive early on in that race that did start coming apart at the
Should
very
we
end.
text Ray and ask him if this horse is named for him? I
You
may
know
have to,
he
I have to
is.
get back on that. Race
That's not a
number
question.
8 is the correction, and I picked against Hot Fudge, and I'm worried, especially if we get some rain, that my horse, because I just want to take the price. But as we show Hot Fudge's win, we're going to go back to Garland of Roses, not her last race. And her last race, I'm going to say, is the best race probably she's run. She handles a wet track, a dry track. I have nothing against her. She is way the horse to beat.
She's
in this
just so
race.
cool, and she's in such great form, and she's really been able to come back with so much talent and ability and versatility
Yep.
as well. And that's what I really like and appreciate about her is she can be adaptable in her running style. She can adapt to different types of distances. She can adapt to whether it's a wet track or not. You're just going to see a horse that's going to show up and run their race, and you're not going to get a good price, but you know that she's going to put in an A effort.
She's been incredible. I agree. I'm a huge fan, and she's just ultra consistent. I'm not going to knock Canary Love. She's probably better second off a little freshening, going back
I
to
like her
6
cutting
furlongs
back.
in this race. I think it's a perfect spot for her because she can surely win. I just think Hot Fudge, like you, is a better horse. As far as Starship, Defiant. Maybe we'll never ever see it again. And when I talk about why it's tough for me to handicap David Jacobson horses, this is the reason. Where on earth could you possibly find this race? But she ran it. And if she were to run back to this race, I think she has a chance to win this race. Now, I know she didn't run well down at Oaklawn. I wonder if Jacobson's was the wet track or was it David going down to Oaklawn?
We've seen some of his horses go down to Oakland and not perform and come right back and do very well.
So I want to give her a chance in this race. Do I think she's going to beat Hot Fudge? No, I don't. But if she's 6 or 8 to 1 and Hot Fudge is around even money, I don't mind betting on her, and I'll use her second to Hot Fudge, and I'm going to try to beat Can't Hurry Love. I know that there's a feeling that Quick Money could be the speed in here, but isn't she going to have to contend with Music City Star? Doesn't Eric have to go from the rail with her?
Yes, and it's not as though Hot Fudge and Can't Hurry Love are so far pace compromised that they're going to be
Right.
so far out of things that it would really be of a significant detriment to them, and I think they're just better. So that's just where I went with that.
I agree with you completely. We'll move on to the last race. So the last race is a fun race.
Yep.
I'm curious. So David has Quando favored over JD Factor. See, I think JD Factor is the horse to beat in here.
I do too.
Uh,
But we
And
could both
we'll
be
go back to
wrong.
his race 2 back because I don't know that January 28th was a dead rail. And this is his race 2 back when he ran well behind Otello, came back and won the Mucho Macho Man. He was supposed, I'd heard he was running in the Tampa Bay Derby. He is not.
No, he ran.
No.
He ran again and then didn't run that well.
He ran in the Holy Bull. He didn't run
Yeah.
well, but I heard they were going to run him in the Tampa Bay
Oh,
Derby,
okay.
and he didn't end up entering. Maybe he's
Well,
with
he would've won
Iago
that race,
somewhere. They're doing Othello on Broadway with, I want to say, Jake Gillen. 2 good actors are in it.
People that are
It's my
known.
favorite Shakespeare play.
Yeah?
I saw some very interesting. I saw Chris Walken play Iago,
Oh, wow.
and Raul Julia played Othello at the Public
That's pretty
Theater
cool.
years ago. But I did see Simon Russell Beale play Iago. He's a great Shakespearean actor from England. He's a great actor.
Nice.
I saw that in Brooklyn. It was one of the greatest plays I ever saw.
Very cool.
And if you watch his last race, which you probably did, or you
I
at least
did.
saw at one point, he was right down on the inside, and the others were out in like the 5 and 6 path. And I just wondered if maybe he got kind of mired down on the inside last time.
I think that that's still kind of up for debate just how bad being inside was that day, but it wasn't the place to be, and I feel as though there were other horses that had better parts of the racetrack than he did. Mike, a little concerned with him, and it might be nothing, but do you worry a little bit that he might not like a wet track because
Well,
his
that's-
one big race was on a fast, dry track? And
Well,
he's-
that's what David just texted me. But my answer to that is, and we'll show Quando's last race, my answer to that is, really? Are they really worse than Quando's race on a muddy sealed track? And one of them was both their first start. And
Well, I
if
didn't pick
it's
either of those
true
horses,
that
but still.
no, but I'm not. I'm just saying this is a
Yes,
point. And
yes.
David's talking about why he made the line like that.
Yes.
And I'm not. He's the greatest morning line maker. I mean, Eric Donovan's an amazing morning line maker. David's great. I'm saying I'm just not sure it's an excuse that I want to use. Because the other thing is, I feel as though J.D. Factor's a better horse, and if I'm right that he had an excuse by being inside, if I'm wrong, I'm just wrong, and maybe he doesn't like a wet track. But if I'm right, then he's a better horse than that. And I don't know that Quando likes a wet track either.
We don't know that Quando likes a wet track,
Just
and
to
we
get a
don't know
second.
that Quando can get out of the gate quickly either. And that's my big problem with him, is that he hasn't broken well in either of his 2 starts so far, and he's given himself a lot of work to do. And while he has taken some money in both of those starts and run respectably well in each race, I don't like horses that have this habit of not breaking quickly.
Fair.
And he's shown it twice now, and especially at a short price.
That's fair. You picked He Has It All, the New York bred, who's in tough here, but I agree with you. He ran okay last time.
He did, and that was a day that the rail was really beneficial, and Liberty Central took full advantage of that, really saving a lot of ground in that race, and he was really never close to the inside.
Wasn't that far off of it.
No, but he was really never close to the inside for the early portion of that race, and while he did move to around the 3 path around the turn, the winner took such a big advantage of that and was able to win by a significant margin. I think we saw that he was really helped by how the racetrack was playing, and I thought he ran well while sort of against it. And we did see a horse in heavyweight champs come back out of that race and run well when returning to a dry track. So yes, this is a tougher field, and he is stepping out of the state bred company, but I think he had some excuses last time.
I didn't put him in my top 4, but I agree with you. I don't think he's impossible. I want to bet True Connection. Okay, I've had enough of Jimmy Ryerson beating me. I beat my long shot yesterday. I still want to throw up. Boy, they knew that horse was going to run, and I thought he
4
ran
in the
well.
last race?
Yeah, I
Yeah,
thought he
yeah.
ran. I thought this horse ran well last time. He broke
Yeah.
a half slow. He completely dropped out of the race. If you watch that day, the riders really stayed off the rail, and he was moving at least closer to the inside in there, and that's Tuscan Sky. And Tuscan Sky at this point is probably Todd Pletcher's. I mean,
Best Derby hope.
well, I mean, he's not, because Fierceness still is.
Yeah.
Fierceness has to bomb one more time before you
Before
write
he's
him
off.
off. He's
Yep.
ran too well in the juvenile to suggest that Fierceness is somehow not his best horse. But Tuscan Sky may turn out to be. I know it was a 3-horse field, but he was fast and he beat a good horse in there. So I thought he was the interesting alternative, and I took him in here. So I'm not thrilled with Quando, and I just didn't want to take J.D. Factor as well, but I'll use both. I don't think we should completely discard Society Man, because
He has some excuses.
he's had some excuses, and cutting back to a 1-turn mile may help him out. I'm not convinced he's that good, but I think in this spot, he definitely merits a look. They thought enough of him to run him in a stake.
Right, and I feel as though he didn't even run so terribly now coming back to this race that you think that he can't run a little bit better, because he ran well in his second start to finish second, going that 1.1 mile distance, then tried the Withers, and that was a day where the winner ran exceptionally well to be sort of against the racetrack, a little bit further out wide, come from off the
But
pace.
he was
and Uncle
always out of
Heavy.
position. And
Yes.
another thing to note about him, for what it's worth, it's the first time he's running on Lasix, because he only ran as a 2-year-old before the stake, and then he ran a stake and he couldn't use Lasix, and he's getting Lasix for this race. All right, Sarah, we're running out of time. Thank you very much. You're on with Maggie tomorrow, I think, right?
Yes,
Yep,
yes, I
I
am.
am not here tomorrow. Head over to Naira Bets. If you're not a member of Naira Bets, no better time than the present. Use the promo code BONUS200. Head over to Naira Bets. Check out the track stats at Naira Bets as well. Also, we have a middle pick four today. Races 2, 3, and 6 for the pick 4s on today's card. We have a bankroll builder, Tampa Bay Derby, bet 50 to win, and you get 50 to win, but it's only going to cost you $30 because you get $20 back towards your bankroll builder. We also have a cross country pick 5, which includes 3 from Oaklawn and 2 from here, including the stake. And is this it, guys? Because we have no America's Day at the Races today.
Watch on Naira
But
Bets.
we will be here. Greg will be handling the first 4. I'll be handling the last 5, and Maggie will be on throughout the day. So enjoy the day. Chris Griffin getting ready for a reprise of Scratches and Changes.
For almost 150 years, the Saratoga name has been synonymous with the finest quality, sustainably sourced spring water available anywhere. Saratoga carries on the rich tradition of its forefathers by crafting each stunning blue glass bottle with the same attention to detail and care that has been its hallmark for generations. Visit SaratogaSpringwater.com today or ask for us by name at your local market or restaurant. Saratoga Spring Water. Make every day exquisite.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Aqueduct. 9 races on today's Saturday afternoon card. The track is rated fast.